Welcome back. Well, behind me here is Dean's cottage, where Jane Deans lived for the first few years here in Canterbury. It's kind of cute, but I bet it's kind of cold too. And I can imagine sitting here watching that new house being built in front of me and just longing to get into it. However, the cottage is the oldest surviving building on the Canterbury Plains. And over here is Dean's Bush, the last surviving remnant of the original kahikatea forest on Canterbury Plains. And how has it survived so long? Well, through many factors, but initially through Jane Dean's love of trees.
Well, Riccarton Bush really is a tiny remnant of what used to grow right across the Christchurch area. If you go back to when the Maori people arrived here, much of Christchurch had this type of forest growing across it. Not complete, it was a dynamic landscape that was changing constantly. The Waimakariri River flooded through the area quite regularly in those days, and forests were developing in some places and being destroyed by the river in others. So the whole area was changing, but basically it was forested pretty well right across Christchurch.
The significance of Riccarton Bush is that it represents forests of similar kinds that have grown on the site of Christchurch for hundreds of thousands of years. And we know this because underneath the city, layer upon layer of buried forest, as I say, like a giant club sandwich, you know, and each layer of forest has forest remnants similar to what you find in Riccarton Bush today. The Maori, like all hunter-gatherer cultures throughout the world, burnt. We don't know what the reason was. It might have been to flush out game, it might have been to clear the horizon so they could see where they were going. Who knows? But throughout the world, hunter-gatherer cultures have burnt and burnt. And when Captain Cook came to New Zealand, you know when that was, a long time ago, before European settlement, he wrote in his diary a little paragraph or two on what he called smokes and spooks. And this was a description of the fires that he saw throughout New Zealand as he went from one end to the other. I think in the case of Riccarton Bush and Kaiapoi Bush, Papanui, Rangiora Bush, they were probably a little damper than they certainly are today. In fact, none of those ones to the north survived because they're all gone. They all went by 1860.
The Europeans arrived, they were hungry for timber, for firewood, and very quickly all those other pieces of forest were destroyed. This is the only piece that survived.
And the only reason it remained from the European times was because of the Dean's family decided that they would keep it.
It's what's known as a conifer broadleaf or hardwood forest. The dominant tree in the forest is kahikatea, the Maori name, and that was called white pine by the European settlers. It's a very large native conifer. It's actually New Zealand's tallest tree. They have a very large root structure which goes out for 10-15 metres, so they're very well anchored to the ground. They also have roots going down into the ground, which is really helping them now because they have to get down for water into the first aquifer, which is not too deep, but the bigger trees in here are able to do that.
Those surface roots spread over an enormous distance. In fact, those trees are impossible to blow over. They're wind firm, as we say, but that's its natural feature.
They're reasonably slow growing, and there's trees in there that are just a few years old, right through to the oldest, which are somewhere around about 600 years old. So they're pretty old trees, and the oldest living things in Christchurch, really. Smaller species, the ferns, the seedlings, the saplings, and the broadleaf species find it more difficult when we have really dry summers. And one of the things we've done to help that is to put in an irrigation system. This was put in 2000, and we've noticed some real improvements in the fern life and the seedlings. It's really helped them. And it doubles up as a fire protection system as well. Most of the New Zealand native wildlife in there, lizards, birds, were being predated by cats from people's backyards which surround the bush. There were rats, possums, all these types of animals were predating the native wildlife. So to stop this, we decided we'd put up a predator fence. It's been very successful, and now we are predator free. We can start thinking about reintroducing some of the species that used to be there. For instance, we've had talks with the Department of Conservation to perhaps release some bird species, birds such as rifleman, the tomtit, the brown creeper, and possibly the South Island robin.
Just in the last year, kiwi born and raised at Willowbank Reserve have been successfully released into Dean's Bush's juveniles, then transferred to Arthur's Pass National Park.
Most people who come here are quite surprised at how nice it is in there and what a beautiful place it is to walk. Riccarton Bush has got lots of uses from the point of view of people. It's a lovely place just for a recreational walk. It's a nice place to go and sit and relax. If you're interested in nature, there's plenty of things you can look at. There's an interesting selection of native plants in there, and the bird life's pretty good too. So it's just a lovely place to be.
It makes me very proud to live and work in a place which really values its past and its future. And we'll be seeing you again in the near future next week. Next week on the all-new CTV Homes and Gardens, brought to you by Lamb and Hayward. We see a wetland being reborn.
Smell the Pittosporum flower instead of the roses sometimes, and that's my message to people. It's important.
A city apartment, big on style.
Really, it was a product of, all of the complications and factors which constrain the design, really. There's starting from all of the things you can't do, there's only so many things that you can.
And teeny weeny tiny treasures in an alpine garden.
The wee crocus Tommy, wee Thomasiniana, the wee purple crocus. Oh, you haven't lived till you've got that. And it's everywhere, it's even out in the compost heap. But it's just such a joy, There it is, one morning it's there. And it's such a joy.
At Lamb and Hayward, we're committed to providing you with the very best environment at your time of greatest need. However you remember, commemorate or celebrate the life of your loved one, the choice is yours. Lamb and Hayward, a tradition of caring.